Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on the relaunched Manual of Contract Documents for Highways Works. My name is James Wright, and I'll be your facilitator today, and thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Our key speakers today are Steve Davey, who is head of our Technical Standards Group. Steve is joined by Anthony Atkins and Kelson dos Santos, who are both principal advisors in Steve's team. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping bits to run through. Firstly, just a reminder that all microphones will remain muted throughout the session to minimise background noise. For the same reason, the chat is also disabled for this meeting, but the Q&A function is live. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to ask a question, please pop it in the Q&A section of the webinar at any time during the session. We'll aim to answer as many questions as we can in the chat during today's webinar. If you see a question you like the look of, please do upvote that question, and we will try to prioritise the most popular questions to be answered during the session itself. It's a very busy session. We're unlikely to get to all of them, unfortunately, but we're also compiling an FAQ document that will be added to the guidance pages of the Standard for Highways website after the webinar. The webinar is also being recorded, and it will be available after the session has taken place. This is a very popular webinar. I think we're full to capacity this morning, actually. We have added an extra session this afternoon between 2 and 3 p.m. So if you have any colleagues who wanted to join this session but weren't able to, please do share the details of this extra session with them. I'll put a link to it in the Q&A session in just a minute. In a moment, I'll hand you over to Steve Davey to get things going. But first, here's a short video from our Chief Highway Engineer, Mike Wilson, to introduce the changes to you. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you find today's webinar useful.
The Manual of Contract Documents for Highway Works ensures we deliver safe, efficient transport across the entire strategic road network. It provides the specifications that go into every construction project. We have modernised the MCHW to make it fit for the future. It will support innovation in digital design, construction and operation of highways infrastructure. This isn't just about updating old paperwork. This is about the future of digital construction and operation of our roads. It is the biggest update to these documents in their 30-year history and is the culmination of 5 years' work of technical specialists across 4 nations and industry. Thank you for watching this video about why we're making these important changes. Please check out the resources we have available.
Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. And today we're going to cover various things about where we were with the MCHW, where we are now, what has changed and how this affects you. And also importantly, the available support to transition towards the new MCHW. We've got 4 nations that work together on these documents. So it's not just National Highways, although we lead on the documents and publish them. We do have Transport Scotland, the Welsh Government and Department of Infrastructure Northern Ireland, who are heavily involved in all of these document sets because obviously they use the documents and it's written for them as well. So, as I said, National Highways looks after both the DMRB and the MCHW. But what is the DMRB and the MCHW? Just in case we've got people who are new to it, the DMRB covers the design requirements and the MCHW contains our standard suite of specification documents, as well as the measurements for highway works. The main focus of the project was the MCHW updates, but it's important to note that we updated 67 DMRB documents at the same time. Some of this was to transfer content from the MCHW, which is really related to design and was better placed in the DMRB. Also where we've introduced specifications for new materials, new ways of working in the specification that needed a design requirement. We've developed new documents or amended current documents as well. So it is a full suite update. Many of you are probably aware that we updated the DMRB in 2020, and that now consists of a digital format, and the new website was introduced it's consistent, and very much this builds on the work that we did in the DMRB. But the MCHW is more complex. It has more implications of change. It's a bigger change in the highway sector, even more so than the DMRB was. So expect it to be a learning curve, and you will need some support when first using these documents. Hence why we've got these webinars and other sources of information we'll come on to. So where were we in April 2020? When we started this project, the MCHW comprised of 7 volumes. It had 126 documents, 571 drawings, and about 3,500 pages. It was only published in PDF, and it provided limited accessibility. It was really just paper document sets that had been moved into PDF and put on a website. And the average age of these documents was 11 years and increasing. So it was in need of editorial review, technical update, or withdrawal. And due to the MCHW's history, the document had inconsistent style and format. There was mixed approaches to the presentation of requirements, and also the way in which it was put together led to inconsistent contract specifications that varied in style and quality, and that led to inefficiencies in the tendering and construction process. If the contract specific specification, which was called in the numbered appendices, was not complete or presented even in a different style, obviously made that more difficult for the constructors to really understand what we was expecting. And there was no templates for contract specifications, and they varied widely. So what happened next? Well, in 2020, we had a technical regulations protocol obligation come in force. This was a requirement on national highways by government for us to develop and deliver a work programme to refresh the MCHW during the roads period 2, reflecting the needs of its users, and the refresh should take account of the stakeholder consultation. We undertook a consultation in 2018 with over 100 different organisations right across the industry were involved in that and gave us the views. There was trade organisations, product manufacturers, designers and contractors and others involved in that, which gave us a good purpose of why we needed to change it. So this led to the vision. We created a vision for what we wanted in the future for the MCHW, which is now the MCHW since we've published it, that it provides a clear and unambiguous requirements, instructions compatible with modern contract forms and future contract practices. So we had all of that coming from there, and that's what we've tried to deliver. So there's a requirements, instructions, and taking account of even the NEC contract. A lot of the MCHW specifications previously was written around the ICE 5th conditions of contract, and we needed to make it available for all contract forms. So have a quick look at the timeline. As I said, the MCHW refresh is a continuation of the work of the DMRB, and we published the new MCHW on the 30th of September this year, and including all of those DMRB consequential amendments I spoke about earlier. This was supported by the National Highways' own collaborative authoring and review system, and standards development has been on this progress for the MCHW since 2021. And we had technical specialists across National Highways working on this, often in partnership with supply chains involved through a framework contract. And they were expected to select for their knowledge and expertise in drafting standards and specifications, as well as on-site and contractual experience. In addition, we verified these changes with many suppliers who undertake the contract compiler role. These people carried out the verification and now MCHW ambassadors to support implementation within their own companies. So where are we now? Let's have a look at the overall MCHW. We now have 3 streamlined document sets, which is the specification, the instructions for specifiers, which is a very subtle but direct difference between notes for guidance to the instructions for specifiers. There's 95 distinct MCHW documents and less than 3,000 pages of content. So that's 25% fewer documents, 20% fewer pages. And it's all digitalized and available as HTML versions, which improves accessibility to enable all people to navigate, and they're available via the Standards for Highways website. The documents are up to date and aligned with industry practice and the DMRB design content. And now, because of the update, everything is in a consistent style and format throughout. And importantly, there are now templates for the contract specification. So where we previously had notes for guidance, we now have work-specific requirements, as they're called, which are contract-specific. And all of this can be downloaded from the Standards for Highways website, offering greater clarity through efficiency in project delivery. Now, this has pulled out several benefits that we would like to share with you. The requirements are now clear and unambiguous, and there's alignment with the DMRB, and that will embed quality from design to construction and improve the contract preparation. The digitalized standards are now more accessible, they're easier to maintain, and can be kept up to date. Rather, they will now be more likely to be updates on a more frequent basis to keep up with the changes in technology, working practices, government policies, etc. And they're more accessible, they're easily searchable, and it enables better environmental outcomes, strengthened operational performance, and elevated customer experience. So at that point, I'll hand over to Anthony, who is going to give you a bit more detail about the changes within the document sets within the MCHW.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, Steve, thank you for setting the scene so clearly and touching on some of those changes. I'll now just go into some of those in a bit more detail. So there are 6 key changes being introduced to the MCHW. A restructuring of the document set, a new document style, the introduction of templates, as Steve mentioned, to create the contract-specific appendices, the introduction of country-specific versions, the updates that have been made to align the design manual and the MCHW, and selected updates to the technical content. Let's now explore each of those in turn. The MCHW has a new structure. In the old world, the MCHW contained 7 volumes. The updated MCHW now contains 3 sets of documents. The new specification for highway works primarily draws from volume 1, with additional material incorporated from volumes 0, 2, 3 and 5. This covers the constructor requirements. The instructions for specifiers is largely based on content from volume 2, plus relevant content from volumes 0 and 5. This covers instructions for the specifier in line with the relevant constructor requirement. The method of measurement is built upon volume 4, with a few rules coming from volume 5. A note on volume 3, the drawings. These were all reviewed as part of the MCHW programme. Relevant content has been transferred to the design manual or specification for highway works as applicable as requirements or figures. In addition, content relevant to designers in old volume 2 has been updated and moved to the DMRB to provide design rules. In terms of the number of documents now, there are 44 specification for highway works documents. There are now 45 instructions for specifier documents. 44 of those are associated with the specification, and there is one introductory document. There are now 50 method of measurement documents. 44 of those are associated with the specification, and the remaining 6 are standalone. And finally, as Steve mentioned, this hasn't just been about the MCHW. 52 existing DMRB documents have been amended and 15 new DMRB documents created. Alongside the new structure, the MCHW has a new numbering system. In refreshing the MCHW, we took the opportunity to align the numbering system with the matrix of technical requirements we introduced for the design manual in Road Period 1. The matrix provides the framework for alphanumeric codes. The first letter is discipline specific. The second letter corresponds to the project lifecycle stage. The number depends on the specific topic. Instructions for specifiers relate to contract preparation stage and are denoted with a P. Specification for highway works documents relate to the construction stage and are denoted with a C. Here is an example showing 3 of our road layout MCHW documents. The specification document code is prefixed with CC, identifying it as part of the civils discipline and indicating it as the constructor requirements, and the digits indicating it as part of the road layout topic. The instructions for specifiers is prefixed with CP, identifying it also as part of the civils discipline, and the P indicating it as the contract preparation set. Method of measurement documents are associated to a related specification document. And here we can see how those documents sit within the technical matrix. There are a few key documents to be aware of. Firstly, the indexes for the specification, instruction for specifiers, and method of measurement documents. Secondly, the introductory documents, specifically GP 110, which gives implementation requirements for the MCHW and instruction to specifiers on the compilation of contract documents for highway works. GC 100 covering the introduction to the SHW, and GP 112 covering the introduction to the method of measurement highway works. I'm also sharing a list of a few general documents replacing the preliminaries in the old MCHW. I'll just pause for 5 seconds for you to take those in. Let's move on to the next key change. The MCHW requirements have a new consistent style. Looking back to the old MCHW, we used to have multiple requirements in the same paragraph and a combination of requirements and advice, none of which were appropriate for a contractual document. And a similar approach to the notes for guidance and a loose relationship with the related contract-specific appendices in Volume 2. The new specification for highway works offers clear and concise constructor requirements with a consistent structure for product, installation, verification, and documentation requirements. As you begin working with these documents, you'll quickly notice familiar patterns that make application much more intuitive. The new instructions for specifier documents incorporate the requirements from the specification, while also providing associated specifier instructions to enhance usability and minimize the need to navigate between different documents. These instructions come in two forms, either as direct statements, like the one here on screen, or as schedules designed to be completed. Finally, you will begin to see references to work-specific requirements, WSRs. The work-specific requirements, which replace the old contract-specific appendices using a standardized format. They play an important role in this updated style, and I'll walk you through this over the next slide. The work-specific requirements relevant to a particular contract are now to be provided within templates, which will be downloaded from the Standards for Highways website for each document. Each template will have a tab per relevant section with work-specific requirements to be provided within schedules or statements. An example can be seen here on the left-hand side of the screen. Note that the text in red is guidance content. Each template will also have a departure schedule to list cancelled, substitute, or additional requirements which had been previously submitted and approved for a departure from standards. Detailed guidance on how to complete the work-specific requirement templates and prepare for dissemination, including how to display large tables, for example, is provided on the Information Hub, which Kelson will introduce later. A significant change we've introduced is presented by the country-specific versions. In the old manual, documents had national variations typically provided in annexes. Now they are presented within the main text. When accessing a document from the Standards for Highways website, users are now prompted to select a relevant country and download a country-specific version, remembering the point that these are written on behalf of the 4 nations. Here you can also see an example of what these documents look like. Specifically, the nationally determined requirements are introduced by the country prefix, this being E for National Highways requirements, NI for Department for Infrastructure Northern Ireland, S for Transport Scotland, and W for Welsh Government. Let's move on to the next key change. As Steve mentioned, there has also been a considerable amount of update made to the DMRB, and that's because the MCHW works only in partnership with the design manual. In refreshing the MCHW, relevant DMRB documents have also been reviewed and amended to align content. We've also created additional DMRB documents to cover items that were not previously dealt with. Importantly, this supports the wider aspiration of the overseeing organisations to reinforce continuity of thinking from design through to construction and handover into maintenance and operation. And finally, technical requirements in MCHW documents and associated DMRB content have been updated to bring them up to date. This included a review of latest industry practice and standards to make the document set fit for the future. We're not going to run through specific technical changes to those documents now. There are far too many to try and cover. However, it is worth flagging that a detailed assessment of the changes has been undertaken, and this has revealed a range of positive impacts, including environmental considerations. The introduction of more options will contribute to improved sustainable outcomes. And I'll come back to this on the next slide, as I want to introduce a related series set of webinars, which will help people discover how the updated DMRB and MCHW documents are creating new opportunities to reduce carbon across the highway network. Another positive impact relates to the operational considerations. We will be able to see shorter traffic management periods and reduced construction programs, which in turn enhance health and safety practices. Ultimately, these improvements will translate into meaningful benefits for our customers. If I can just return to the point that I was just making about reducing carbon across the strategic road network. Alongside the relaunched MCHW and the 67 documents in the design manual for roads and bridges, the updates cover most disciplines, including pavements, structures, drainage, and roadside technology. The modernised MCHW and updated DMRB present a major opportunity for our project teams, design partners, and supply chain to meaningfully contribute to reducing carbon across the strategic road network. We have a series of webinars during the first week of November looking at how the new standards are removing barriers and unlocking innovation to accelerate our journey to net zero. If you work in any aspect of the design and delivery of construction and maintenance projects, these webinars are an opportunity to see how you can start putting the benefits of the new standards into practice straight away. Please scan any of the QR codes that are on screen now, or click on the link in the Q&A to get involved. That was my little plug for that additional set of webinars, but I've covered the key changes, and I'll now pass over to my colleague Kelson, who's going to explain how this affects you and the available support. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. So next on the agenda, I'll be covering the start date of the implementation of the MCHW. I'll also touch upon the impact on the different roles interacting with the set of specification documents and where to find the relevant support and guidance. So where will you start to use the MCHW? I expect that many of you may be wondering when the updated documents will be used and how it will affect your projects and whether you need to change what you're currently doing in response to these updated new requirements and design documents. So in short, we expect that the new contracts, all the new contracts that are let from the 30th of September, which was the day of launch. So all the documents from that date onwards will implement the new specification. So all the implementation requirements are stated in the new GP 110 introduction to the MCHW, which was earlier mentioned. These documents also includes an option for the overseer organizations not to use the updated MCHW. So for a project that is in advanced stage of design, where that would cause a significant cost and time implications. So that's something that it's an option to pursue. This is particularly relevant for all the existing contracts. So your client, project manager, will be responsible for making the decision, and that needs to be done in compliance with the implementation requirements set in GP 110. And it's relevant to point out that this approach, that exception that I mentioned, to adopt the newly published standards, it's consistent with current practice. So there won't be much of a difference there. Please do remember that though the old style and the new style of MCHW documents should not be mixed, and because that can create all sort of contractual confusion. So unless you decide to use the specific new document or any new clause on an existing contract, so in each case, this will need to be done via departure from standards. So two key messages I'd like to stress on this slide. First, the implementation requirements are stated in GP 110. Second, the decision is for the project team to make and to record on how that decision was made and why the decision was made as well. So on the next slide, I've got some frequent answered questions that we received from previous webinars, which hopefully will answer some of the key questions on when to implement the MCHW documents. So on my first question, I have an existing construction contract let before the 30th of September 2025. Should I redraft my contract specific specifications to align with the updated MCHW? So it's not envisaged that the updated MCHW would be used in this case. So please note that even though the MCHW documents required by the contract will now show as superseded on the Standards for Highways website, they can still be used in most cases for existing contracts. So the following question we received, I have an existing construction contract let before the 30th of September 2025, and I need to update the contract specific specifications. Should I use the updated DMRB and the MCHW documents? So the answer to that, so for this case, there is a contract change. Hence, the project team would need to decide how they wish to implement the design changes and whether to use the updated DMRB. So we don't really envisage that the updated MCHW will be used to draft the updated contract specific specification. So as I previously mentioned, this would need to be confirmed by the project manager and appropriately recorded. So the following question we received says, I have designed the old DMRB, which completed before the 30th of September 2025, and I need to start drafting the contract specific specification. Should I redesign it following the updated DMRB and then use the updated MCHW? Well, it is not envisaged, again, that the redesign would be needed in this case. However, this would need to be confirmed by the project manager and, following through the appropriate record. So in terms of drafting the contract specific specification, the implementation requirements that are stated in GP 110 would need to be complied. And again, the decision whether to use the new set of documents will depend on the stage that the project is at and, assess the impact of how that implementation would be followed. The last question I've got, my project is using the previous version of the MCHW. Can I adopt technical changes implemented in the updated MCHW and DMRB? So to answer that, if the project team wanted to use any of the individual technical changes in the individual updated MCHW documents, then they could and use the alteration system that is existing within the old MCHW, and that means to use substitute requirements, the SRs, the additional requirements, or the cancelled requirements, which are set in the old series, not for guidance 0. And again, that would need to be assessed for each individual technical change. So on my next slide, I'd like to focus on how does this affect you. So as you know, there are different roles interacting with the MCHW as shown on the screen. So all need to familiarize yourself with the updated set of documents and any relevant update to the technical requirements. Please note that the different roles have different implications, and full details on each of these roles it's available from the Information Hub, which I'll be talking more about it. So how this impact the different roles interacting with the set of new requirements and designs requirements as well. So we have identified 9 audiences, and I've got these 3 that I'll be talking about first. And those cover the high-level information and some of the key impacts, but all the detailed information regarding how this impacts you is again on the Information Hub. So I'll start with the impact if you are a designer. Firstly, you need to be aware that of the DMRB consequential amendments, and as presented by Anthony earlier, there are 67 DMRB documents which have been updated or nearly created to align with the MCHW. So there are some technical changes that were captured as part of that. So please have a look at the Information Hub to familiarize yourself with that information. It is important to note that there is no change to these established practices that designers currently follow. You continue to undertake all the design activities and produce design outputs. And the main difference is that those outputs will now need to be used to populate the work-specific requirements templates, rather than the contract-specific appendices, which they've been removed. So let's say, moving on to the next role, if you are a specifier, for instance, you need to familiarize with the new instructions to compile the contract specifications, which are now provided in the information for specifiers in line with the relevant construction requirements. So something important to note here is that you are now expected to complete the work-specific requirements templates, and just ensure that you follow the guidance that is contained in the Information Hub, which gives a step-by-step instruction on what to do and where to get the information correctly. So moving on to my next role. So if you are a constructor, you'll need to make sure that you have reviewed all the updated SHW documents. And please do bear in mind that there are some technical changes as well as part of that. So next, take time to familiarize yourself with the WSR templates, and they'll be used for the new contract-specific specifications. And finally, just keep in mind that any implementation considerations maybe affect the delivery on site. So something important to note. So the following role I've got is if you are a project manager. So again, you'll need to understand the implementation considerations, particularly for existing contracts. So it is recommended that you read and digest GP 110. And if you are intending to use the updated documents on your existing scheme, please review the GP 110 in detail and just be aware of some of the technical changes that have been introduced. So the following role I've got, if you are a product supplier, you'll need to start by reviewing the updated documents for the technical areas relevant to the product or service in question. So in most cases, if your material or product met the requirements of the old MCHW, they are likely to align with the updated version as well. So it's just essential to ensure that they meet the specific specifications for the contract that is being used. So the next role I've got, if you are a certification body. So just be aware that the new documents and clauses numbering system may affect existing certifications, especially where they reference old series or clause numbers. So please, it's important to review that the updated documents for the technical areas relevant to your product or service. And do check that the latest verification and documentation requirements ensure continued compliance. So the last three roles, I'll start by if you are a quantity surveyor. So you need to be aware that the new method of measurements for highway works, short for MMHW documents, these have been broken into different documents to align with the SHW document series, although the content is largely unchanged. So once you have a look at it, you'll be able to see. You'll need to familiarize yourself with the WSR templates when you begin to look at the MMH documents. So where the contract involves bills of quantities, you will use the MMH contract specific specifications, which involve the completed WSR templates as well as drawings and to measure and assess costs of each solution. So if you are a local authority, we recommend that you review the documents and check whether the changes made can impact your own documentation. For example, the new document and clause numbering system may affect your documents if there are direct references to the old MCHW document series. Also, whilst the MCHW has been drafted for motorways and trunk roads network, all the WSRs can be targeted to different roads, related authorities, making them usable for and by everyone. Excuse me. So lastly, if you are a software developer, some of the key points is just there are new documents and clauses numbering systems. And these are also included within the MMH document series. And just be aware that this may impact the kind of softwares and the direct references to the old series. So the content provided is on HTML with a plan to provide API interface for third-party system in due course, so something that we are working on at the moment. So to support this change, so a summary of key technical changes by document are available from the information hub. So I'll also share shortly a list of all topics contained within the updated MCHW, and this will help you to find information more easily. So moving us on in terms of the available support. So let's start with how to find the SHW documents. All the MCHW documents are published on the are published on and available to download from the Standards for Highways website, which I believe most of you are familiar with. So the search functionality has been updated. So you'll now be searching by country, document type, applicable date, which is the date relevant to your contract. So let's say if you are looking for the most current document, please set the date to today, or if you can find previous versions by using relevant past dates as well. So once you launch the search, the following page will appear, which lists all the relevant documents, which you can see the standard view on the screen. And you can also select a compact view by clicking here. So if I select a document, let's say CC 120 for now, this is a SHW document. The document page will appear, and you can open the document in HTML, or you can choose to download in PDF version. You can also see the timeline at the bottom of the page, including both current and superseded versions. So let's pause for a moment on the topic of superseded versions. While the MCHW document is specified in the contract may now appear as superseded or withdrawn, on the official site, they will remain valid for use because they are the versions that are referenced within your contract. So it's just important to remember that each contract governs which document version applies, not the current status shown online or on the website. So don't be misled by the website label. So what matters is what is written within your contract. So similar to the SHW, you can also search the information for specified documents, short for IFS, which is shown on the page. The approach in terms of how to search for documents, country-specific criteria and applicable date, it's very similar as I previously shown. Importantly, the WSR templates are available to download from the IFS document page, as you can see on the screen towards the bottom. I will move us on now to talk more about the guidance and support available. So we recognize that this is a substantial change, and we are keen to support you throughout this process and this transitional process. And in addition to the usual standard for Highways website page, we also developed a dedicated information hub page. This is the website that covers essential guidance for how to implement the MCHW, where to find the relevant information, and the hub also explains why the MCHW has changed and what has changed, including key changes at suit level. And an important aspect, I think, is the document mapping from old to new. which will be really useful to follow and understand. For example, it shows what happened to the old series documents, the alignment with relevant new MCHW, and the association with the DMRB documents, how those were affected by the change. I've also got a summarized key change at document level. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be including a list of all topics treated in the MCHW to help find all the relevant information. Another important part of the hub is the tab, what to do, which includes the impact of all the relevant parties, such as designers, contractors, product manufacturers, as well as the implementation consideration and a step-by-step guide to preparing and disseminating a contract-specific specification using the WSR templates. The hub will be accessible to all and available via the link from the Standards for Highways website. And we recognize that people will be coming to update, and using the updated MCHW at different times. So the information hub will remain live for as long as users may need. So if you are unable to find any sort of guidance or relevant support within the hub, please do not hesitate to ask us questions, which that leads us to my next slide in terms of how to get feedback, or to provide feedback rather. So on this slide, if you have any questions or feedback on the updated MCHW, or as well as within the information hub, please make sure that the feedback form is used on the Standards for Highways website. Once you go through the site, you'll be able to see the route for feedback in there. So it's really crucial that you use that route for feedback, because that is then directed to the relevant team for a response, or if an action needs to be taken, so that can be acted accordingly. Please don't hesitate to follow that route and ensure that the right information goes to the right place, and we should be able to support you. So that brings me to the end of my session. So thank you once again for listening, and I'll now hand over to Steve to provide us with some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelson, for that detailed review of the changes. So during this webinar, we've covered information that we hope will find useful when you're adopting a new MCHW. I just want to reiterate what this means. There are fewer and easier to maintain digital content. There's clearer and up-to-date requirements in the new MCHW, and which will provide frameworks for future construction practice and innovation. There's clearer and easy to access instructions for the specifiers in the new instructions for specifier document set. And there's greater efficiency in the production of contract specifications. There's downloadable, standardized work specific requirements. There's accessible HTML documents, which are more easily searchable through on the new FH website. And we embed quality from design to construction through better alignment with the MCHW and DMRB. And we enable better environmental outcomes, strengthened operational performance, and elevated customer experience. So we hope that you found this session useful. I see there's been a number of questions in the chat. We've answered some of those now, but we will be adding more to the FAQs on the information hub based on the questions that you have provided. Just as a couple, the templates are available in an open spreadsheet file. This is so we're product neutral. but it can be opened in Excel and edited. And then from Excel, you could, if you desire to do so, export that as a PDF. I also noticed there was other ones about suppliers working with 2 different versions. Yeah, we do recognise that, and this is quite a radical change. But what I would say, it's very important that people check what the contract date is that your particular contract you're supplying to is. For instance, the DBFO Tranche 1s in England work to the 1995 version of the DMRB and the MCHW, and not the one that is even current on the 1st of September this year, prior to the publication of the latest one. So I think there is a challenge with it, but I don't think that is anything different to what we've had before. So we've covered where we were before, and where we are now, what's changed. Now this affects you, but most importantly, the available support. So thank you very much for your time. We'll aim to respond to any unanswered questions I said, and we'll consolidate those to make sure that they're consistent with the other webinars that we're doing. And there's a number of QR codes on the screen at the moment where you can link to the Standards Highways website, the Information Hub, and the feedback form that we've referenced. There are also links to join the live roundtable discussion, Pavement Solution Showcase, and the Geotechnics and Structure Solution Showcase, which again are webinars about low carbon materials. And I see that we've now got a poll on the screen, so I would hope that you can complete that. So just to finalise, thank you very much for your attendance. Hope you found it useful. Obviously, we've got the feedback form to give you details about any changes, but please make use of the Information Hub. Many thanks, and see you soon. Thanks. Bye.